Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt, and I'm honored to be given the opportunity to share my stuttering journey, growing up as a covert stutterer to finding acceptance and communication confidence. My story isn't unique, and there may be parts of my journey that may resonate with you. For the past few years, you may have heard of the term intersectionality being talked about in stuttering spaces. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar with this concept, intersectionality is a way of understanding how different parts of your identity, like race, gender, class, sexuality, and disability, don't exist separately from each other, but are interwoven and interdependent. These overlapping identities could lead to complex and nuanced experiences of discrimination or disadvantage. And today, I'll be sharing my experiences as a stutterer and how they're deeply intertwined with my life as a second-generation queer Filipino American. And I'm here to share a story of multitudes and how I navigated reconciling multiple intersectional identities while embracing my authentic self. So my earliest memories of stuttering, oddly enough, didn't include actual stuttering. So not only did I remember feeling that stuttering was a burden that I felt like I had to carry, but it also felt like something I had to conceal on my own. So as a young kid growing up in 90s suburban Bay Area, California, I remember letting my parents order for me at McDonald's just because I knew that I wouldn't be able to say the CH in chicken nuggets, even though that's the best thing on their menu. I also remember countless times where I wouldn't raise my hand in class for fear of stuttering, and times where I wouldn't attend birthday parties I was invited to for fear of being found out. These moments of avoidance were too much to count, and they slowly chipped away at my own self-worth as I approached adulthood. Every conversation felt like a tightrope walk while trying not to look down, constantly foreseeing at least 10 words ahead of myself for a potential stuttered syllable, and ensuring that that stuttered syllable didn't see the light of day. I sounded fluent, but I was living a life of fluency while betraying my authentic voice. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only facet of my life that I betrayed. So just as much as I feigned fluency and was in deep denial about my identity as a person who stutters, I was also betraying my Filipino identity. As a child of Filipino immigrants who immigrated to the US in the 80s, my siblings and I were the product of the American dream. I wasn't taught Tagalog in order to ensure that I'd fully assimilate into American culture. This created an additional communication barrier that I had growing up on top of my stuttering. My parents worked really hard. They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps to prove their Americanness by learning English, working graveyard shifts, sending me and my siblings to a private Catholic school for a better education. And I remember vehemently begging my mom to pack my school lunches with pizza Lunchables and Hot Pockets in place of really good Filipino home cooking like pancit and lumpia, because I was so worried how it would look or smell around the other kids. I wanted to fit in so badly and be perceived as normal. I often felt caught between two worlds as a child of immigrants. At home, I was immersed in Filipino culture, cooking lumpia with my Lola, and watching reruns of Filipino soap operas. Soap operas are universal. But in public, I navigated the broader American culture, often feeling the pressure to conform and fit in. My journey toward embracing my Filipino identity is an uncanny reflection of my journey toward acceptance of my identity as a person who stutters. So no matter how much I substituted words or how much papaya soap I used to lighten my brown skin, the threat of exposing my authentic self was always present. Coming from a culture that values protecting the peace above all else, pursuing authenticity sometimes felt like I was causing so much discord. If I really let myself truly stutter, what would my family think? I became an expert at navigating the fluent world, but I was suffering in silence as I kept stuttering a secret from my own parents until I was in my 20s. I believed that self-identity and acceptance was only rooted in the examples that society lays out for us. Whether it was conscious or not, I was chasing fluency, I was chasing whiteness, all while desperately externalizing my own sense of self to fit into a clear-cut label I was looking to be assigned to. The turning point toward acceptance came when I realized that my silence, both in my speech and in expressing my cultural identity, was more painful than the fear of being judged. 12 years ago, I attended my first NSA conference in St. Petersburg, Florida in 2012, shortly after joining my first ever chapter group. And I'd like to share a journal entry I wrote the day after attending my first conference, because it kickstarted my journey toward acceptance of stuttering. I began to understand that my worth was not determined by my fluency or my ability to fit inside a single cultural mold. All right, so I'll be reading an entry that's dated July 9th, 2012. Almost, exactly 12 years ago. All right, so here we go. I was lucky enough to experience one of the best experiences in my life, attending this year's National Stuttering Association Conference in St. Petersburg, Florida. These 5 days have been a whirlwind of life-changing and indescribable experiences, from speaking at an open mic to shamelessly singing badly the words to Alanis Morissette's Ironic at a karaoke bar, one of my favorite all-time karaoke songs. It's weird thinking that only a week ago I was bundled up with a mixed bag of anxiety and excitement before my flight from San Francisco to Tampa. I just couldn't wrap my mind around the thought of walking among a massive pool of hundreds of people who stutter. And still, it's difficult to fully take in everything that happened on this trip. So much has happened. It's tough to savor every moment. I've made so many friends here who share a commonality that's unfortunately rare. And being among a group of people who just get it made me feel this simple, no-fuss sense of freedom. Gone were my avoidance techniques. Gone were my self-lacerating habits. I felt like I could do and say anything within these few days with total abandon. And that's what I did. I stuttered my butt off during this trip, and I didn't think much about it. It felt like the whole speaking world shifted. It was actually pretty cool to take a good 20 seconds to block on your own name when ordering at a restaurant. The conference itself, it was sort of like a stutterer's utopia, a little microcosm of people who know what you're going through with complete understanding and empathy. As a stutterer who's been covert through most of his life, it felt cathartic to just release all that pent-up emotion and feelings of shame and inadequacy I've accumulated over the years. I'd say that this conference has helped me gain a more realistic, practical view of stuttering. Forget about the fear, the shame, the embarrassment, the guilt, the denial, and the anxiety. Stuttering is much easier to deal with when it's detached from those feelings. I'm eternally grateful to everyone for making my first conference as awesome as it was, to many more conferences to come. All right, so that's the end of that journal entry. So let's fast forward to the present, 12 years later, with 11 conferences under my belt. So this would be my 12th conference, I think, if we count the virtual conference. I could assuredly say that I've gained so much from the stuttering community. I've gained a sense of belonging, and I've made lasting friendships. I sometimes look back on my stuttering journey with fondness. Even through all the mental anguish, the times where I wanted to introduce myself to people but didn't, the times where I wanted to go to a party but didn't, or the times I wanted to order what I wanted to but didn't, I still wouldn't change a thing. Because for better or for worse, these experiences have molded me into the person I am today. A person who's still figuring things out as they go, but is at peace with that. I've reached a point in my life where I could confidently tell my 6-year-old self that things will get better. I would tell that 6-year-old self that you'll find a community who will welcome you with open arms, and you don't have to deny any part of who you are. You'll get to lead the East Bay chapter group and make so many friends who also stutter. You'll graduate with your master's in SLP and get to influence change toward neurodivergent affirming practices and stuttering treatment. You'll use your own experiences as a person who stutters as the driver of your therapy, and you'll approach things with a degree of empathy and compassion in stuttering treatment. You'll be part of the NSA's very own DEI committee, where you'll work with a team committed to fostering a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment at the NSA. You'll make sure that every culture is embraced and differences are celebrated. You'll be part of the Passing Twice community, who will provide a safe space for you to stutter unapologetically and live fiercely as a queer man. And lastly, you'll meet the most kind, loving, and empathetic person named Evan at the NSA conference in Baltimore. and today, you will celebrate 5 years of unbridled joy with them. The good thing is that it's easy to remember our anniversary because it always falls during the conference date. All right. To anyone who may be struggling with reconciling their intersectional identities, I want to say this: value your uniqueness more than the box you may fit in. It may feel like you don't belong in any one community, but when you don't quote unquote fit in, you're forced to see the world through different angles and points of view, all of which shape you as an individual. I'd be lying if I said that my journey toward acceptance and communication confidence was a linear one. There are still moments where I wish I did not stutter, and I'm taken back to that child within myself who saw their own stuttering as a burden. Unlearning these burdens is a lifelong practice and will continue to be as long as ableism is a thing. But the neat thing is that I now have the tools for setting boundaries to protect my authentic self. And when my energy is depleted, I know I could seek help from the friends I've made along the way on my stuttering journey. My burdens were a shield that gave me a false sense of protection. For all you first-timers out there, or anyone who's new on their stuttering journey, I want you to know that true liberation occurs when you could let go of that shield and allow yourself the permission to take up space unconditionally, stutter and all. Thank you.